Hey everyone, welcome back to DevRunner. My name is Paul, and I'm pleased today to bring you my fifth installment of the Subscriber Spotlight series. Today I'm going to be talking to Heather from RunningGeekGirl. She's an awesome YouTuber who covers a wide range of running topics on her channel. When she shared her story of being diagnosed with skin cancer, as well as her treatment, her recovery, and her return to running, I knew I wanted to have her here. So without further ado, please join me for an amazing conversation. Here we go. Hey, welcome back everybody to DevRunner. This is episode 5 of Subscriber Spotlight, where I like to shine a light on motivational and inspirational guests that subscribe to my channel. And today's guest is a perfect example of that. She is a runner. She is a fellow YouTuber. She is just awesome. Before I go too deep, I just want to let you know that she is, as I said, a fellow YouTuber who covers a wide array of topics regarding running on her channel, and she does such a wonderful job that she's a regular part of my viewing menu. So it's with great pride that I get to introduce my guest today. Everybody, please welcome Heather from RunningGeekGirl. Heather, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for asking me. I'm honored.
Oh, it's just wonderful to have you here. I've enjoyed your whole journey on YouTube, and to get the opportunity to talk one-on-one with you, this is just awesome. So just to kind of jump in, I'm hoping that you can share a little bit of an autobiography, whatever you feel comfortable with sharing with everybody, just to kind of let everybody know who you are.
Well, sure. My name is Heather, and I run the channel Running Geek Girl. And the story behind the name kind of came to me when I was at a convention one time, and it just kind of stuck. I was trying to think of something, and yeah, that's the one that just jumped out at me, and so I stuck with that. I've been on YouTube for almost a year. After talking about it for 2 years, I finally just said, you know what, I just need to do it. So started the channel. I like to cover a lot of topics that a lot of beginner runners can use, and as well as things for people who have been involved for a while might find interesting. And as far as who I am, I'm a stay-at-home mom of 2, and I've been running about 5, almost 6 years, and I live in Arkansas, so lots of hills, lots of trails to run around, although I typically stick to road races. That's where I'm comfortable. And so that's just a little bit about me.
Let me just kind of jump right in and ask you, what is your athletic background? Go back as far as you want to.
Yeah, my athletic background is that I don't really have one. You do the normal stuff where your parents, when you're about 5 or 6 years old, they sign you up for softball, and you do that for a summer, and that's about it. I remember in around 7th grade, that's when they start making you run a mile in PE, and I was short and scrawny, and so I could go pretty quick because I just wanted it to be over with. I did not want to run. I wanted it to be done, and so I would just run that mile as fast as I could and then collapse at the end of it. And then for some reason, the coaches thought that meant that I could do track, and so they put me on the track team, but my heart was with drama club, and it was interfering with my rehearsal time, so I quit track so I could concentrate more on theater. And that's really what my background is in. I'm more of a theater and music person. That's so that's what I do. And so beyond that, just doing the bare minimum to get out of PE classes in high school and again in college. And I really didn't get more athletically involved until I was an adult, and kind of started getting into just a little bit of running. I wasn't, real serious about it or anything. But then I got involved in roller derby. So
really?
Yes, so I did that for a couple of years. I played blocker and did that for a couple of years, and you can only get hurt and bruised so many times before you're like, I think I'm done with this. So,
Wow. Wow.
that's about it. I'm more the person you want on your trivia team than your dodgeball team. I'm just
Well,
not athletic at all.
it sounds like you can, it sounds like you can handle yourself though. I mean, wow, roller derby. That's pretty amazing. But I mean, yeah, okay, just to move beyond that, I mean, that's a whole, I could ask you 1,000 questions just on that, but just to keep the ball rolling
Oh yeah.
in the right direction, I'm gonna ask you, how did you go from roller derby? How did you, after giving up running in high school and college, just, to get through it, how did you pick up again? How did running become a part of your life that you actually went,
Well,
so that you wanted it to be a part of your life?
right. Well, I had always seen signs around town for a 5K for a charity that was really close to my heart. It's for the Dr. Robert Elliott Foundation. And what they do is they work to help bring awareness to depression and suicide.
Okay.
And as someone who struggles with depression myself, of course, that meant a lot to me to, be able to participate in a 5K where the money was going towards a charity like that. And, I just knew that was something I wanted to do. And I didn't even know how long a 5K was at that point, but I knew that was something that I wanted to do. But I just never could really get myself motivated to train for it. I tried doing a Couch to 5K program. At the time, there weren't really that many apps dedicated to it. And so it was a whole lot of trying to figure it out in my head of, okay, I'm going to run 90 seconds and then I have to time it. And it was just so complicated that I kind of gave up on it after a few weeks. And then after my first kid was born, was struggling pretty badly with postpartum depression. And I knew that I needed to pull myself out of it somehow. And my sister, who lives in Florida, she called me and said, hey, I know, you're probably looking for something to get involved in. And I know that there's this virtual 5K that's going on, and they're wanting participants from every state, and they don't have one from Arkansas yet. So do you think that maybe you would want to sign up for that? That'd be something really cool for you to focus on. And I thought, sure, why not? So I registered and I started doing 5K training again. And that was my first 5K. It was on a treadmill. It was painfully slow, but I finished it. And once you finish that first 5K, it's like, wow, what else can I do? So, then you start thinking, okay, could I do a faster 5K? Could I maybe move up to 10K? And so then you kind of start exploring what else am I able to run? And so things just kind of kept building from there. And then funny story, I worked my way up to a half marathon. Okay. And didn't look at the elevation profile beforehand. And if you know anything about Arkansas, we got a lot of hills. We have a lot of flat areas, but we do have a lot of hills. And they like to call them rolling courses. But I didn't check, and I went out for my first half marathon, and it was just up and down the entire time, just up and down. And it was raining that day as well. And I had never run in the rain before. So I think it took me almost 3 hours to finish that first half marathon, but I was absolutely elated by the time I crossed that finish line, because I was like, I didn't quit. I actually did this. And started marathon training after that. And I did a whole live stream on Susie on Run Things. She had me on her channel to do a live stream to talk about my first marathon, because it just went so badly. I mean, it was really wrong. And it was one thing after another, to a snowball effect, to where I ended up passing out at mile 20. So
my, really?
Yeah, so it was terrible. And I have not attempted a marathon since then, but that's on the docket for this year. But
that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that.
After that, I said, okay, what if I went back down to a half marathon? So a couple of months later, did another half marathon, and I was having the hardest time recovering afterwards. First of all, it was slower than I intended, and I was like, I know I can go faster than this, but it was slow. I was so tired, just worn out the entire time. Got to the end, and like 2 weeks later, I was sore, I was tired, I felt miserable. I was like, what
Hmm.
in the world is happening? There's no reason it should take me this long to recover
Yeah,
from a half
absolutely.
marathon. So I went to the doctor, and he was like, well, here's the problem. You're 6 weeks pregnant. I was like, well, that would do it. So kind of stopped
Absolutely.
running again until after I had my daughter, and hit postpartum depression even worse. I mean, it was the
Gosh,
absolute worst it had been. And my family finally told me, look, you need to start running again.
gotcha.
And
Gotcha. Yeah, that's wonderful.
my parents stepped in. They're like, if you need us to watch the kids so you can have an hour or two to yourself so you can go work out and you can run, then we'll do that because you need something. And so that's what I did. And it took a while to wrap my mind around the fact that I need running for myself,
Yeah,
um, and that I could take care of everybody if I was taking care of myself first. And that was a hard lesson to learn, but that's what running has done for me. And so that's why I stick with it, is because it's something that I do for myself so I can help everybody else. So
gotcha. That's wonderful. And I'm so glad to hear you make that connection because there have been several conversations I've had in the last month with runners, and it just seems to be becoming more apparent to the running community that physical activity and mental health are far more closely connected than I think people gave it credit for a long time. It was always kind of like, the muscle bound dummies versus the intellectuals, and that's just not reality. It's just a healthy body makes a healthy mind, and vice versa, I do believe.
and that's one thing that I really appreciate about the running community, is that there's a place for everyone, no matter what your body type is, no matter your gender, no matter how fast you are, how slow you are, there's going to be a place for you somewhere in the running community. So
Absolutely. Yeah, the running community is so altruistic and so positive. It's just, I don't know how I made it through the vast majority of my life without, never mind just the running, but without the community. It's just,
right.
when you're feeling down, you just go online and talk to, somebody with a channel on YouTube, and you feel great again. But okay, yeah, just to move beyond that, we've kind of covered your running history, and it sounds like the one comment I do want to make before we move on is it seems like there's always something every time you go to a race. There's like some kind of at least one major obstacle that stops it from going in an ideal way.
It's true.
I just hope you. It sounds like you've got the right attitude, so I'm sure you're just going to keep on keeping on. But I can't
Well,
wait
that
for
was
the
one
first
thing someone
report.
asked me on Susie's live stream was, when the marathon didn't go the way you wanted, were you mad? Were you disappointed? I said, in the moment, I was a little bit disappointed,
Yeah.
but I moved past that and said, okay, what have I learned about myself? Now I know that, this is how often I need to hydrate, and this is the pace I need to maintain. And so I was able to learn so much from that failed experiment. So
Yeah.
that, there's no real loss if you don't finish, because you've learned something from it. There's always something you can take away.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and the marathon is such a beast that I've run 10 of them now. And it's just one of those things where that learning curve never ends. There's always something else you can tweak, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, you think you understand what 26 miles is until you actually are trying to run 26 miles, and then it's something completely different.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it's something completely different every time. That's the thing.
Mhm.
You know? But okay, yeah, just to move on from there, because once again, I could spend an hour talking with you just on that one subject. But Tell me a little bit about the transition. Okay, so you establish yourself as a runner, you know you love it, you know it's something that makes a positive difference in your life. How did you move to YouTube? Was it an extension of running, or was it just a completely separate passion that you just kind of would have taken to even if you weren't a runner?
Well, I'd always been just a fan of YouTube in general. I've been watching a whole lot of YouTubers just for years, and so that's kind of one of my main forms of entertainment. And I remember, and this is where the whole Running Geek Girl thing came from, where the name popped into my head. I remember I put up a Facebook video where I said, "Hey, just to my friends, what if I were to make a YouTube channel and it would be about the stuff I'm doing with running and, stuff I'm learning about food and how to fuel myself, and all the stuff that I'm using. Would anybody even want to watch that?" And like every one of my friends was like, "I would totally watch that channel."
That's awesome.
So that's kind of where that came from. But then I just, you know, started thinking, okay, well, I don't have a camera and I don't have this and I don't know how to do that. And it took me 2 years to finally just say, you know what, the only way to learn this is to just jump in and do it.
There
And
you
so
go.
I opened my laptop with my, terrible camera and no microphone and just started filming a video and put it up because I thought, okay, I want to have a video up before I go to the Princess Half Marathon at Disney. And I want to
I can,
start before that so that I can do a race report afterwards. And so that was the whole impetus for, actually putting something on YouTube was I'm going to do a race report for the Princess Half Marathon because I've seen other people's Disney race reports and I think they're awesome. So I could do that too. And so it just kind of went from there.
gotcha. How cool is that? So it was a natural outgrowth of your running then. That's awesome. That's cool. So, all right. Let's leave that there for now. And if you don't mind, I don't want to get dark and serious here. That's not the intention here. But forgive me. I've got a little bit of a long question here. So as I do from time to time in these interviews, I'm going to look away from the camera. I'm going to do a little bit of reading, and then we'll just jump in.
Okay.
So basically, my question to you is, a couple of months back, you shared news that you'd been diagnosed with skin cancer. I want to applaud you, first of all, for sharing the progress of your surgery, your healing, and your return to the running community. Your story, one of the main reasons I really wanted to have you here is because your story of that entire arc is so inspirational, and it has the potential to really help other runners, including myself. I've had a similar situation, which I've never shared before, but there it is. There's a lot of people who are runners who need the advice that you have to give. So with that, I was hoping you could walk us through that entire story from diagnosis through to where we are now.
Well, it all started last summer, and just the usual thing of putting on sunscreen, going out for a run, and came in one day and had a zit on my nose, which is not unusual because you put enough sunscreen on enough days in a row, and eventually my skin's going to fight back and say, I'm clogged, help me. So, I was like, okay, no big deal. It'll clear up in a few days. About a week later, it was still there. And when I got out of the shower, noticed that it was bleeding. So I was like, okay, well, I guess maybe it just popped. No big deal. That happens. It'll heal in a few days. So it scabbed over, but then it broke open again and bled. And then it scabbed over and it broke open and bled. And it did that for about, I guess, 5 months or so.
Wow.
And, I kept wanting to ignore it because I figured maybe it's just me, maybe I accidentally keep hitting it and knocking it open. It's my fault, and finally my parents were like, well, my dad has spots that he's had to have taken off before, mostly on his head. And they're like, if it runs in the family, you might want to go get that checked out. It's been a long time and it hasn't healed. So called the doctor and I went in and he said, yeah, that does look kind of troubling. Why don't I send you to a dermatologist? which works because the dermatologist is literally a quarter of a mile from my house. So I got to run in to go to the dermatologist. And he took a look at it, and he said, let me just test this and I'll be right back. And he came back in and he said, okay, well, the good news is that it's basal cell carcinoma. So he said, cancer, but he said, you don't have to get your affairs in order. This is not life threatening or anything like that. He said, you don't have to worry about that. He said, the bad news is that it's in a bad spot. As it turns out, the two places you really don't want to get skin cancer are the end of your nose and on your eyelid, because those two places are really difficult for doctors to work with. So he said, I can't remove it here, and I'm going to have to send you to a specialist in Little Rock. And he said they'll have to consult with someone who studies, plastic surgery, and they'll have to make sure that you can retain function of your nose, because they said if it goes as deep as we think it might, because he said this is a particularly angry looking spot. And he says if it goes as deep as it might go, then there's a chance they're going to have to do some massive reconstruction on your nose. So I was like, okay. Was walking home, called my husband and said, well, looks like this is going to be just a little more extensive than a process than I thought it was going to be. But he said, well, he goes, it is what it is. We'll do what we have to do to get through it. Which funny side note, we always figured cancer runs in his family, like any type of cancer runs in his family. And so we were all fully prepared for him to be the one diagnosed with a cancer first, and then it was me. So he was like, didn't see that coming. So
wow.
Ended up going to a specialist in Little Rock. It had to be really early in the morning, and he took a chunk out of my nose. And he said, I'm trying to leave the cartilage where it is, because he says trying to rebuild cartilage is, that's a huge deal. So he, took a fairly sizable chunk out of my nose and then said, okay, I'm going to test it. He came back about 20 minutes later and said, it's still there. There's still more cancer. Okay. So they had to take an even larger size chunk out of my nose. It got to be, it was a little bit bigger than a dime that they ended up taking off of the end of my nose. And then they said, okay, well, now you got to go around the corner to the plastic surgeon, and met with him. And he said, there's a couple of different things that we could do. And said, we're going to go with this technique. What they ended up doing was they took a strip of skin from right here and twisted it up onto my nose, but then had to leave it attached right here and sew this closed so that it could establish a blood supply. So I had to live with that for almost a month before they could go back in and do the second stage reconstruction. So I told people it was really more annoying than anything else, because I looked like this weird lab experiment. And for about a few days after the first one, I could touch right here and feel it over here.
Wow.
So it was crazy.
Wow.
But I knew all this was coming up, but I didn't want to miss anything on the channel. So I pre-recorded a whole bunch of videos and scheduled them to come out while I was recovering. Yeah, and so I made it through that, but just kind of, I keep spreading the message of this could have been so much worse. I'm very fortunate that it wasn't. I'm lucky that I am one of those people that does wear sunscreen, and I'm glad that we caught it when we did, because I would not have wanted to be in a worse position than that. I got in touch with someone on Instagram. She actually came and found me since I was talking about my experience, and she lost enough of her nose where she now has a prosthetic nose. And so, I mean, I met another woman on Instagram, and she's lost a big portion of her cheek. And so I've met a lot of people this way, and that all have similar stories, but I just realize how fortunate all of us are that we came through this. And
absolutely,
now I know what to look for, and I'm spreading the message that man, you got to wear sunscreen because,
Thank
you know,
goodness. Yeah. There are two things from your story that I want to remark on. And the first one, just basically just reiterating what you just said, that thank you for being so on the ball on your channel and in your videos, kind of sharing that message. Because, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, if people are careful and they wear one of these and they do the sunscreen thing and cover what they don't have to have exposed to not overheat when they're out there, you can do yourself a lot of good. And the second thing that I really want to commend you for is how much you openly and transparently shared throughout the process and how positive you stayed throughout the entire thing. Because, and I think it's important, not just for you as a person to stay positive, but the fact that you shared it out there with anybody who is watching, I think goes a long way towards making people not deny any situation that they may be going through, to not just let it fester and get potentially worse. So it's just worth so much, you know, and I feel like I've kind of blown it a little bit. Maybe I should share a little bit more of my history with this, because you know, unfortunately, you know, I've had to have things removed from here and there throughout the years, but yeah.
Well, that's one thing that I've learned from talking to so many people in the YouTube community and just runners everywhere, is that I've found that everybody has a story, and everybody's got something that they're dealing with, and everybody's got something that could stand in their way that, you know, they either overcome or they don't. And you know, this was not something that I was going to let stop me. I know I let depression stop me from doing stuff for so long that now that I've learned how to move past that when I need to, I don't want anything else to be an obstacle.
That's awesome. You're such an inspiration. I'm sitting here and I just, you know, I don't want to seem like I'm being hyperbolic or just like, you know, throwing just too much your way in the way of positivity, but you know, you deserve every bit of it. You're awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't feel awesome. It was just kind of a thing that I was going through, and I was like, this could happen to anybody. So,
yeah,
you know.
But the fact that you shared it and the fact that you put it in such a positive light, I think is going to help a lot of people. So thank you. Tell me what motivates you to run these days and what your plans are for the future.
Well, it's funny because I actually just recorded saying something that where I was saying it's kind of hard to find my mojo lately, because I was, for the past 6 months or so, working towards the Little Rock Marathon, and of course we just found out that it's been postponed to November. It's Arkansas is just not in a great position COVID wise right now, and so holding it the first part of March would not really be a great idea. And so they, the race organizers, met with the convention center, the State House Convention Center, since that's kind of the central hub of everything. And the only other weekend that they had open for the whole rest of 2021 was in late November. So the race organizers are not real happy about it, but they said, you know, we don't have a choice. This is the only other time that we could hold the race. And so now it's like, oh, well, that was everything that I was working towards. It was going to be the weekend of my birthday and everything. So, you know, what am I going to do to keep myself wanting to go outside? Well, first of all, just the routine itself of going outside, just how it fits into my day, how I know it's going to make me feel afterwards is usually enough to get me out the door. And there are some little, you know, smaller goals, not like really race oriented goals, but smaller goals, like I would like to run a faster 5K, and that's always on my plate. I'm always trying to run a faster 5K. Again, I am not the speediest person in the world. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a natural athlete. I'm not a natural runner. Everything that I I have to work really hard at it. And so it's taken me a long time just to get down below the 28-minute mark for a 5K. And so, just kind of shaving those minutes off bit by bit takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
So, running a faster 5K and
Now, do you ever do time trials, like to keep to like, do you work towards a time trial every so often, or is it just, just
actually, I
incremental?
have started considering that since watching a lot of your time trials. I'm like,
Oh, okay.
I should be doing that. So, um, and it helps when you have runners like Goku Runner, who sets up different virtual races, and it's like,
Absolutely.
can you beat his time? Which the last time he did a 10K, he beat me by I think 2 seconds, and I was like, I was so close. But so just finding the little things to do, and definitely to shake things up this year, I want to try trail running. I have been a road runner my entire running career, and I think I've maybe run on a trail just a couple of times. It's, kind of thing where I'm out camping. I'm like, oh, I'm going to just go do half a mile or so and, run a half a mile from the camp and back. And, so that's about the extent of trail running that I've ever done. And I'm like, there's so much more that I can learn, and so much more fitness and balance and just experience that I can get from it. So that's definitely something that I want to do, and that's helped kind of lessen the sting of having a marathon push to the fall, is knowing that, well, now I have this goal to work towards. It's it's a new experience. So
Yeah.
so it's just a matter of just finding the little things that you can tweak, and finding a new way of doing something. So I can run, but can I run on a trail? So
Yeah,
that's
I'll warn you, I'm in the same position as you. I'm basically a road runner who goes out on the occasional easy day on a trail run. And I just use like an old worn out pair of Hoka Cliftons. I don't even have like a real trail running shoe in my collection, but it's addicting. It is so peaceful and so nice out there. It's like once you start, I have to like use all of my willpower to not just switch over at this point. It's like oh no, wait, I'm going to stay on the roads, try to set a few more PRs, just a few more, and then I know once I actually go, that'll be the end of it. I'll just be like this ultra trail runner for the rest of my life.
and then, when all else fails, get a new pair of running shoes, because that just gets me out the door every time. I'm like, I got to try these out.
Yep. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's so
funny.
cool to hear.
I love watching YouTube channels with ultra runners, just because I'm like, I could never run 100 miles. That's not in my wheelhouse. But one of the ultra runners that I contacted, I was telling her how much I enjoyed her channel, and she said, yeah, I was like, yeah, I don't think I could ever do that. She's like, if you can make it through a marathon, you could do a 50K. Yeah. And so now I'm like, well, maybe. In the future, though. That's for future Heather to worry about.
I gotcha. Yeah, the challenge is in the back of your mind. You'll eventually get there, though. That's so cool. So, all right, I want to ask you a very big, amorphous question. Answer it any way that you feel works for you. How has running changed your life for the better?
Well, besides the obvious of helping pull me out of depression, that's been probably the biggest part. It's definitely taught me a lot about myself, if that makes sense. You kind of learn about yourself as a runner, because I learned about, okay, well, I'm a salty sweater, and I need to hydrate this often, and this type of fueling works, this type doesn't. And then once you start figuring that out, and then I started looking at what else I was doing around running that would affect it. And so then you start making little changes elsewhere in, how you sleep, or, what you're eating. And then once you make all of those little changes, then everything else around you kind of starts to change. And just like my interactions with other people, and just my having the confidence to start a YouTube channel, and you just kind of start changing in smaller ways that kind of snowball into something bigger. And that's one thing that I kind of like about running is it's something that's so universal.
Mhm.
And because like my 4-year-old, she can run about she ran about 3/4 of a mile the other day just around our neighborhood. Just and I didn't teach her to do that, but she tells me all the time, mommy run, I run too.
That's awesome.
So it's just even at 4 years old, she's kind of figured out running is something that's fun, and it's something joyous, and um it's just kind of a expression of what you can do both physically and mentally. And that's just something that I really love about it. So just by taking care of myself and becoming a better runner, I've just kind of become a kind of a more stable person in taking care of my family and staying in contact with friends and so on. So it affects more than just your body. It's and it affects more than just your mind. It kind of affects everything that's around you.
Great answer. It's just, yeah, I mean, you just covered a lot in very few sentences, and it's all absolutely the truth. To move on from there, Heather, in a related question, I would like you to share what you consider your favorite advice for both runners and YouTubers.
Really, the biggest advice that I've gotten is that you first of all, you can do a lot more than you think you can. And we're a lot more capable of things than a lot of times we will give ourselves credit for. And I remember when I first started running, and every once in a while you run into those running gatekeepers of, if you don't run a certain speed, you're not a runner. If you have to walk at any point, you're not a runner. And I remember sharing the experience of my first half marathon, and there were so many people that were like, "That's great, you crossed the finish line, you did it," But there were one or two people that were like, "It seriously took you that long to finish a half marathon, serious, and you're telling people about it? That's just sad." And I'm like,
I feel
"But
sorry for
the
those
point
people.
is that I finished, and
Exactly.
you've crossed the finish line. And even if, even those times when I was not able to cross the finish line, I still got something out of it. So don't let anybody dull your shine, really.
Beautiful.
And don't let anybody define to you what a runner is. If you think you're a runner, you're a runner.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. But what I always tell people is, if you made it out the door for your first run, you are a runner. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it.
And not every run is going to be perfect. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a half mile into a run and went, "This is not happening today."
Oh yeah.
And so you turn around and walk home and go, "I will try this again tomorrow." So
it's funny, it runs the gamut, because sometimes you'll go out the door, force yourself out there feeling horrible, and then a mile later you just feel like the world could never take you down. You just feel so strong. And then other days it's exactly the opposite. It's just about the process. You just keep it up and you get where you want to go.
So that's the biggest thing that I've learned, probably, is just that if you're a runner, if you say you're a runner, you're a runner.
That's awesome. That's great advice. That's great advice. And just to kind of press you a little bit about YouTube advice, what have you learned that you would like to impart to others?
Just jump in. I held myself back for a couple of years, hemming and hawing, trying to figure out what is the right way to do YouTube. And there's no one right way to do YouTube, because I have seen so many YouTube channels at this point. Everybody has their own editing style. Everybody has their own music they like to use. Everyone has their own lighting style or lack thereof. And, you know, everybody is going to look different. And so if you go into YouTube trying to look like another channel, you know, that'll only get you so far. It may teach you a few techniques that you can adapt for yourself, but eventually, you know, you just got to jump in, find what makes you you, and just let that go. I've always kind of had the philosophy, both in life and I've carried it over to YouTube, that the right people will get you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that I actually got that from Joel Hodgson when he was developing Mystery Science Theater 3000. And when he was trying to pitch that show, he was telling the executives, you know, the right people will get it. And that's kind of a niche show. It's one of my favorites, but you know, that's just kind of how I feel about both myself, my YouTube channel. It's like the right people will get it. And
Exactly.
you know, if people don't like me, if they don't like my channel, I'm not forcing them to stay. You know, there's plenty of other channels that they can watch. So you know, all I can be is me, and on anybody's channel, all you can be is yourself. All you have is, you know, your style, the way you like to do things, and just jump in and figure it out.
See, that's wonderful. That's wonderful, because that's the whole point of YouTube. That's the whole point of social media, is that it gives you the opportunity to serve a niche market. We're not talking about broadcast. We're not talking about, oh, we need a huge demographic because we've sunk billions of dollars into this and we need a return on investment. We're talking about find the people that jive with you and serve them. It's just wonderful. So again, I think you've nailed it, both for runner advice and for YouTube advice. Just good stuff. Simple, and it all makes perfect sense. So Heather, I want to give you the opportunity, speaking of social media, to share all your outlets. How can people get in touch with you? And yeah, we'll go from there.
Well, I am on obviously on YouTube as Running Geek Girl, and I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter under Running Geek Girl. So super easy to find.
Super cool, and I'll share all of that in the description below the video, so it'll be easy for people to find you. So Heather, I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you for doing this. I've been a fan for several months of your channel, and it's just one of those things where I'm just so glad to finally get the opportunity to speak with you one-on-one. And thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
That's awesome. So everybody, I just want to take a moment here. Pause this, or we're just about done here. So when this video is over, jump off my channel, go to Heather's channel, hit that subscribe button, because you will not be disappointed. There's so much good stuff there. So with that, Heather, again, thank you. And I hope you have a great night and a great rest of the week. And we'll talk again soon.
All right.
All right, bye-bye.